Hyundai North American CEO Jose Munoz there, sharing his views about the auto industry and the appetite for lithium, a key mineral for EV batteries. Let's talk more about this resource with our next guest, Simon Clarke, CEO of American Lithium. The company manages large-scale lithium projects in Nevada and Peru and holds one of the world's largest undeveloped uranium deposits. Simon, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Can we start with the geopolitical risk surrounding this critical resource vis-a-vis China? What's the Western supply chain doing to de-risk and diversify?
It's a great question. I think the Inflation Reduction Act is a really good attempt by the U.S. government to really energize domestic supply of critical minerals. And I obviously heard the taping there from the automaker side, and I think it'll take a while for everything to work through. But it's clear that we, in the Western side or the U.S. and its partners, this is a process that's going to involve all of us. So I think it's been good to see the color on the Inflation Reduction Act in the last few days that has shown that it can apply to other countries that are partners or have trade agreements with the US. And we need all of the knowledge base that a lot of countries have outside of the US, and to be honest, all of the critical minerals as well.
Simon, so in terms of who controls the levers of supply, is it really still China that has that preeminence, and where does it leave pricing? And then furthermore, and you've made this point consistently, how supply constrained is lithium, and where does it leave the pricing outlook related to both of those factors in the short to medium term?
Yeah, listen, China has done an amazing job both technologically, both in terms of resources and building out its supply chain. It's incredibly well set. And if you're talking about refined lithium products and refined battery products, the vast majority of those are still coming through China. And so they do control a lot of it. And I think you can see just in the terms of how the Inflation Reduction Act is set up that they're trying to balance that, because you start off with lower percentages of required critical minerals to qualify for the credits, and then that ramps up over the next few years. So I think this is a critical approach to ensure that we develop supply chains that we have to have if we're not going to be held hostage down the line, and if we're going to be able to truly compete on a global basis. So I think lithium is obviously the key one, but there are other critical minerals in there as well.
Indeed, Simon, I think you highlight a very important point with regards to China. I mean, in terms of capacity and actually deposits of EV minerals and metals, China is not number one. But where they are number one is downstream, where the value is added in mining and also in refining, correct? So, that is where I guess the western part of the supply chain, they need to focus their attention.
Absolutely. We need to decouple that. A lot of the hard rock projects around the world, they mine the lithium, they concentrate it, and then they ship it to China for the upgrading and refining into the final products that are used in automobiles. They do have a growing domestic production side as well. And as I say, they've gone about business with a 20 to 30 year view of setting up that position. And so we're very much playing catch up, which is why it's critical that we bring on. Just for an example, in the US, I think we produce 4,000 tons of lithium carbonate a year. And, last year there was about 560,000 tons globally produced. So it's a drop in the ocean. We need the raw materials critically, and we need the refining and the plants that are actually going to be able to build the products that go into these vehicles.
Simon, numerous challenges, and let's bring it to American Lithium's operations and projects in Nevada and Peru. Just give us a sense of where you are in terms of meeting your production targets, what's on the horizon, and just how challenging operationally is the situation for you, given the rising cost base, given the rising cost of capital now, and then, of course, the ESG considerations, which you do believe are very important?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Nevada is a great jurisdiction to do business. There's a big focus on battery supply chain there. I would say the one piece in the US that we really have to work on is the permitting side. We don't need these mines to come into production in 5 years' time. Quite frankly, we need them yesterday. So for us at American Lithium, we're into a pre-feasibility stage. We'll then have to go through mine permitting, and you're looking at first production 3 to 4 years out. On our Peruvian side of things, we have a wonderful large-scale asset that's further ahead, and the permitting process is faster in Peru. But when you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, it has the ability to apply to countries like Peru. And I think this comes full circle around to the point that, we're not going to be able to produce enough of these minerals and refined products in the US alone. We need to work with all our partners. And obviously our vision is that not only what we produce in Nevada, but also Peru finds its way into the domestic supply chains.
Simon, if I can take it away from your wheelhouse and bring in nickel, which is another very key critical mineral in the EV supply chain for battery materials. With regard to Indonesia, can you just give us your sense of how Indonesia is doing in terms of building the supply chain there, building capacity and moving up the value chain?
Yeah, I mean, I think Indonesia again has done a good job in terms of putting a lot of infrastructure in. I mean, it's ultimately going to depend on which chemistries become more and more prevalent. But I think LFP, obviously, the lithium iron phosphate is a battery that's done very well in China for smaller distances and maybe lower performance. But I think as these vehicles roll out in the US, and the US penetration at 5% is a lot less than China, which is over 2% now. But if we're going to have those higher class vehicles with greater range, then absolutely we're going to need more and more high grade nickel. So, I think building the infrastructure and being able to bring online a lot of nickel is going to be critically important as well. And I think Indonesia is clearly in a good position in that regard.
Simon, you note the Mineral Security Partnership, MSP, which is less than a year old, trying to secure supplies of critical minerals for EVs outside of China. Peru, where you have operations, is not part of MSP, and we just saw what happened with Honduras, also in Latin America, right, which literally cut ties with Taiwan, went over to China. How secure are your operations in Peru?
It's a great question. I mean, obviously, there's two things. That partnership, that is the initial group, and I think you'll see that rolled out to include other countries as well. And, Peru historically has not been a battery metal producer. Now, I shouldn't say that because obviously copper is its major export, and that is more and more important in EVs. But I think you're going to see, with us bringing on lithium, I think you're going to see more and more of a battery focus out of Peru.
Okay, got to go. Simon, thank you.